streaming live. I am once again asking for your financial support. I'm not. Making fun of Bernie Sanders because, why wouldn't I? Or why would I guess? I don't know. I'm going to. Okay, I think I figured out something from last time. I'm learning how to do this stuff. And it said on the interwebs that I could look at manage. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. It's set up to live now. Schedule stream for later time. Whatever. Built-in webcam. Use an encoder. I don't want any of those things. I just want the manage tab. Okay, so anyway, it says that it said that I could manage my live, like, okay, I'm using my phone to do the live stream. And when I was doing that, of course, the phone is, a fair distance away. I don't have comments on the screen, and even if I did, I wouldn't be able to see them because they're too small and too far away. And so I was, searching, like, how do I do this? How do people do that? They're probably using fancier equipment than what I've got, but apparently you can. Let's see, options, edit. No, not that. Can I? Live viewers, connection. It didn't tell me this part. But it said that maybe I could manage the comments. Okay, I think this is it. Comments as they happen. Okay. How about I type a comment and see what happens. Cool. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. But I'm working on my daughter's coffee table again. I got all those mortises done. The one, the last time I was doing, I was chiseling out some mortises, and this time, what I have is, I don't know if you can see this. I'll get it up close, but right inside that shoulder, right there, there's just a little bit of material left. That's because when I'm cutting it on the crosscut sled, it's cutting like right here, and I go close, but I don't go to the full depth, height, whatever you want to say, for this, because I want to sneak up on the fit to get into the mortise. And then the same goes for when I'm using the tenoning jig. I showed it, of course. I'll have a video of the whole project eventually, but I showed it in there, and I talked about it a little bit in there. But of course, you won't see it. You can't see it yet because I'm not done. Excuse me, I'm not done making the video yet. But when you're doing a tenoning jig, it's either going through the table saw like this or like this, and so the blade is up like this, and you don't put it all the way up to the exact height you need. You short it just a little bit so that once again you can sneak up on the fit. So what happens is you've got this little corner of material that's left around the tenon on the shoulders, and so I'm gonna remove some of that, and it's a easy thing to do. I will have to hammer on my chisel a little bit, so you're gonna have to suffer through some hammer hits. My microphone is right here on my head. I decided to try it instead of on the shirt because it's like, it's got a pinch on your shirt, and I thought, oh, maybe I can put it here. I was gonna put it on my glasses, and I may still, but I was thinking that I wasn't gonna have my glasses on because they were reflecting light. You probably don't need to know all these details, but I need stuff to talk about. So, but But anyway, so that's what I'm doing today. I do have one of these done already. I've got one of these finished and fit into the mortises of the legs, and I will show you that in a few minutes. But so you just you do a straight line chisel this way, hammer it, and then most of the time you can just do this, but not always. So I'm gonna tap it a little bit this way, and you just keep trying to cut through the material that's hanging on so that it just falls off. And I think here we go. Oh yeah. Look. Wait, I'll get it against the dark. Oh, half of it just fell off, but there's what's left. Okay. Anyway, so there you have it. That's what I'm doing, and I got to do this. And while I'm at it, I might as well do the other apron pieces too. This is one of the two short pieces. It's a coffee table, so it's rectangular. I guess that doesn't have to be a rule, does it? But it's a coffee table and it's rectangular. Let me see if I can do this side without undoing everything. So this is one of the two short sides, and then I have two long sides, two long aprons, I should say, not sides, but aprons. They're the pieces that go in between the legs and hold it together, and then the top goes on top, because that's what a top is for. And there we go. That one is also done. Oak is, I don't know why I always pick white oak. I mean, in this case, I picked white oak because it was the right color for what they wanted, what my daughter wanted and her roommate. But I end up working in white oak a lot, and it's super splintery. It's kind of a pain in the butt when you're doing hand tool work. But this is the path I have chosen. One of these days I'm going to make a big project with mortise and tenon out of cherry or something that's fun to work with. I mean, this is fun, but something that's a little more buttery, a little nicer. Oh, hey, new subscriber, David Dahl, whoever you are, thank you very much for subscribing. Oh, there you are, right there. So he says, what are we building today? It is a white oak mortise and tenon coffee table, and I'm working on the tenons right now, removing the leftover shoulder stuff in the corners. I'll go ahead and show you the since someone asked, I'll go ahead and show you the legs that I already have together. Dear God. It's just fit together. It's not glued. Hello. I just got this done a little while ago before I went live. Got them fitted, and it's finicky. Of course, I had one. I'll explain using this. I had one that I cut just a little bit too thin. I was trying to shave just a tiny bit off on the tenoning jig, and I probably shouldn't have done it. And so it was just a little bit too thin this way. It flopped a little bit that way, but the fit top to bottom was tight. And then on the other end, I don't know which one's which, but whichever, it fit nice and tight side to side, but then top to bottom it was just a little bit too loose, but it was better. It was better than the second one I did. But anyway, so but it's a good tight fit, and once I get the glue, good lord, each one of these legs probably weighs as much as a baby, and I'm gonna set it over there. The legs are 5 inches by 5 inches, approximately. It's like 4 7/8 each direction, and and it's what, 16 3/4, I think, 16 and a half, 16 3/4, because the full height of the coffee table needs to be 18 inches, and the top is 1 1/4. So yeah, 16 3/4. And yeah, each one of those legs is like super heavy. So once I get these done and fitted, I need to go buy a new circular saw blade for my circular saw, because the one that I have is thin, and it wants to deflect, and especially in white oak, that's really pretty hard. It wants to deflect a little bit, and then you end up with a bad cut. So I want to see if I can find a blade that's not thin, which might be hard at the box store. I might have to order it. Maybe I should just do that, because I feel like the ones at the box store are going to be, they're all going to be thin, because they're, they cater to construction workers and framers and stuff, and it makes sense for them, because you want it quick, and it doesn't matter if it's, absolutely perfectly square. Obviously, they want it to be square, but it doesn't have to be fine furniture square. But so yeah, I might have to order one of those. But anyway, so then I'm gonna use that to cut the tabletop to length. I've got the panel glued up and everything, but some of the boards are different lengths and all, and I've got to cut both ends off. And I can't do it on my crosscut sled, because it's 27 inches wide, and my crosscut sled handles about 21 or something, so it's not even close. And then I mean, like, I've got a miter gauge, but the top probably weighs like 50 pounds or something. That wouldn't work too well. So I don't really have anything. I mean, I could cut the majority of it off on a bandsaw. Ooh, I hadn't thought about that. I could cut the majority of it off on a bandsaw, and then I could use a straight edge and that router bit that I have. Let me show you this router bit. It's one of these that's like a helical head. Excuse me. And it's got all the little square deals that are kind of, they're not at an angle, but they are in a spiral. So and it's brand new. I've only used it for a couple of things, so I've only used it like twice or 3 times or something. It's got a bearing at the top and the bottom. It's also really heavy. But the nice thing about that is I didn't even have tear out. Like, I was using it. I did some those mosaic background, like the geometric background signs. I will show you one, because I have one, I think, close by. Yeah. I did one of these. And before I put the frame on, you glue all these things down and everything, and then they're sticking off of the edge of, you've got like a plywood backer, and they're sticking off the edge. And so then you put the bearing where the plywood backer is, and I ran that thing all the way around. And even when it was cutting like against the grain, like, because some of these are running at an angle. So even when it was spinning this way and it was, cutting against the end grain, It didn't struggle. It didn't chip anything. It was pretty amazing. It was really nice to have something like that. And of course, this is only a quarter of an inch thick, so on this thing, it's probably only hitting like one of the one of the little square blade deals, or I should say, the width of one of them. It's hitting several, but in other words, it's not hitting. It's not like this thick, and it's hitting two or three of those in the spiral. It's just a little bit, but it still did such a really really good job. It's new, it's sharp, so that makes a difference, obviously. But anyway, point being, I'm sitting here processing this while I'm talking about it, and it seems like that would work really well if I just, I could put it in. I could either put it in my router bit or my handheld router, and do it that way with a straight edge, like on the attached to the top or something. That would. I mean, I'd really like to buy one of those blades anyway, but I don't have to do it right now. I'll probably cut this thing off and get it done. Good idea. I'm glad you asked. Thanks for helping me with that. So I might do that, but that's the next thing. I've got to, get these fitted, get that top cut to size, and endwise. I might have to rip off a little bit. I think it's pretty close to it. It's end width, but I might have to make one or two rip cuts on the edges to get rid of them. Once that's done, and like all the pieces are, the mortise and tenon legs and aprons all fit together and all of that, then I'm going to use a wire wheel. A nasty old wire wheel. I've got one on a drill, but I've also got this that goes on my angle grinder, still in the package. And I'm going to do that weird texture thing where you just grind on the wood, and all of the, there's early wood and late wood or whatever, and all of the, is it the early wood, I think, that's softer? I can't remember, but whichever. It takes, some of that out and leaves other, because some of it's harder and softer. And it gives it a really cool, like, weathered looking texture. And I might do some other things to weather it. I'm not sure what. You can take like a chain, and you can kind of beat on it a little bit, like hit it with the chain softly and make some little dents here and there and stuff like that. Because it's supposed to be kind of cowboy. I can't remember what they called it. Cowboy something. I kept calling it cowboy chic. I don't know if that's right. But whatever, it's supposed to be like cowboy furniture, and they have a couple of big oversized, like an oversized chair and a oversized sofa that are that poofy brown leather kind of thing. They're old. They're from probably the 70s or 80s or something like that, and they still work really well, and they look good, and so they were wanting something that kind of fit that theme, that motif. So yeah, gonna do the wire wheel thing, and then I'm going to put the top on with the figure 8 clips, if you know what those are, and I'll, obviously I'll show all that stuff in my video and everything. And then I think I'm going to do, because I want the natural color as much as possible. I know a lot of people are really into the kind of the supernatural supernatural. That's not what I meant. The extremely natural white oak look, where you do like a water-based polyurethane, and it doesn't, it's not supposed to amber it at all. It doesn't add any yellow color to it or anything. I don't love that. I mean, first of all, I've never worked with water-based polyurethane or water-based finishes in general. So I'm sure there's nothing to it, and I probably could, but I don't want to. If I'm going to experiment, I want it to be on something that's for me or something that doesn't matter, like scrap wood or something. And I don't really want my first project to be, an important project that's for somebody else, even if it is my daughter. But also, I like that amber look. I always have, especially with white oak, it has that nice golden color and everything when you're done, and I love that. So that's what I'm gonna do. But it'll be boiled linseed oil, probably cut maybe 25% with mineral spirits, and I'm guessing 2 coats. I usually do 2. 3 seems unnecessary most of the time, but we'll see how it looks after 2, and if I feel like it needs more. There's a helicopter going over, so sorry if that's interfering with the audio. And I know it looks like I'm in a dark room. I turned on the what do you call them? The softbox lights, and the lights behind me, just kind of to make it look a little nicer than the bright LEDs from the ceiling and everything. But I've got my doors open, my shop doors open on both sides, and there's a nice little breeze blowing through, and the birds are out there singing like crazy because it's really warm today. I think it's probably almost 70 by now. It was 65 when I got out here about an hour ago. And it's kind of breezy, and I'm sure you can hear my little wind chime thing going. It's my sister gave me that. Gosh, I don't even know how long it's been. It's probably been like 15 years ago or something like that. She gave it to me. It's one of those kind of abalone circles, and so it's not really like chimes. It's a bunch of it looks like almost seashell material or something like that, and they're just little discs, and they all bang together. So anyway, all right, now I gotta do this. We shall see how this turns out. Oh, so I'm doing, like 2, possibly 3 coats of boiled linseed oil. Then I'm going to do a coat of Willie's hard wax oil finish. Will, the person who makes it, his name is Will. He calls it Willie's hard wax oil or something. I can't remember. Willie's finish. But I got to know him because he used to live here. So when I knew that I was going to move down here to Tennessee, and I knew that I was going to have, a really nice shop, and I was going to try and make woodworking, a bigger part of my life, so to speak. I started doing research, and at the same time, just coincidentally, I started looking for podcasts that were about woodworking, and came across one that was also, kind of Christian based. It was half, talking about woodworking and half talking about Christian stuff, and it's called Faith Talks Wood. That's the name of it. Took me a second. Not because it's inconsequential or anything, but because I just, I was like, I don't look at the name of it. It's just on my Spotify, and I tap on it when I'm ready. But it's called Faith Talks Wood, and originally it was 2 guys. One of them's name is Will, one of them was Patrick, I think, and they both lived here in Middle Tennessee, and started doing this, podcast about woodworking, but also about Christianity, and so I started listening, and they'd been doing it for a while. So what I'm a little too OCD. I can't just start listening, where the current thing is. I have to listen from the beginning. It's kind of like watching a series or something. It's like, well, I got to know what's going on, right? Um, so I started from the beginning and listening and everything, and it was these two guys, and I was really enjoying it, and I was I was kind of binging it. I was listening to it as much as possible, and I hadn't even moved down here yet. I was we were preparing, we were getting packed, and I think I even maybe started, like, I was into it a ways, and then we started bringing stuff down here and all of that, and and then I got to a place in the podcast where the one guy, Patrick, wasn't he his life changed. He wasn't able to devote the time to the podcast anymore, and so Will got this other guy, Tom Watkins, to join, and they're the ones that do it now. But Will is originally from Pennsylvania, and he he his life changed. Like, he got a job offer or something like that, and had the chance to go back to Pennsylvania. Apparently, he had lived here for, I think, 5 or 6 years or something like that, most of which was during COVID, unfortunately. It's probably a good place to be during COVID, though. But anyway, so he moved. Like, I'm listening to the podcast as it's progressing. I'm still not up to the current time yet or whatever, and he moved back to Pennsylvania, and I had already sent him a message, and was saying, hey, I'm going to be moving down there. I'd love to, get to know you a little bit or whatever. Maybe we can, meet sometime after I get settled and everything. And he messaged me back, super nice guy. He messaged me back, and he's like, he's like, actually, once you get further into the podcast, you'll find out that I moved back to Pennsylvania. I'm not down there anymore. And I was like, oh, dang it. And then I, got to the point where I, heard that part in the podcast and everything. But anyway, we've stayed friends, and he actually asked me to be on his podcast at some point. So that'll probably happen someday. But he makes this finish. He started making a hard wax oil finish, and okay. So here, I'm going to show you this real quick. You can see, like, all of those are cleaned out now. The little waste material is gone from the edges, from in those little corners. It's just, it's not hard to do. It's not, because you're only chiseling. It's like a 1/16 of an inch in each direction, and so you're not chiseling much away. But it gets in the way when you're trying to put this in the mortise. It does not want to go. So there's that. Now, let me see. It's going this way, so I need to fit this here. And then this will be like this. And yeah, that's good. Does it fit this way? Oh, good. All right. It already fits one direction pretty well. So that's good. I just need to get it to fit the other direction. Oh, and I learned this trick a while back. I can't remember where I got it from. But I imagine this would work for a few other joinery techniques. But okay, so the bigger part, this is an inch shoulder here, and this is a 1/2 inch. And the inch is at the top of the mortise right here. And I did that on purpose because I didn't want to be, like, hammering on this or trying to, if I was chiseling out the finer, the last parts of the mortise, or if I was trying to hammer this in or something like that, I didn't, that's end grain. And if it was only a 1/2 inch, I feel like it would be easy for it to chip that out or something, and it'd screw up the mortise. So I made that 1.5 inches at the bottom. So the trick is, once I get that all cleaned out and everything, then you turn this around. This is how it would fit in, but the distance here is the same, and you can test where your mortise is, like if it's in the right spot, by putting that against there and use it as kind of a measuring gauge. And I do have a little bit of material left over in the mortise, so I'm going to take this. It's just a tiny bit. It's not much at all. It's maybe like a 32nd of an inch or something. But then what I will do, I need to number these because I'll forget. 3. I'm putting it on here. This one looks a little rough, but all the rough places are going to be covered up, so it doesn't matter. Oops, 3. I'm also putting the number inside the mortise so that I can always see it, and then I'm putting it on the end of the tenon. Okay, now that stuff is important because let's just say I know from experience. Oops, so yeah, got that, and I cut a little line with my marking knife. Excuse me. And I'm going to take those off, and I'm going to try to fit this in that little line I drew with my marking knife and see. Oops. Yeah, it's not easy because it's so thin. I'm going to see if I can shave off just a little bit. Oops, I don't want to drop my hammer on my glasses. That'd be bad. So yeah, I'm just trying to get rid of this little extra material that would prevent it from, it would prevent this top edge from being flush with the top of the leg. There's just a little bit extra, and so if I remove it, then when I fit this in here, this surface should be flush with this surface. Should be. We shall see. Let's see, where's my tiny square? Teeny tiny square. You might have seen this on my last live stream. It's a little hard to see because I was trying to look cool and I turned off the big lights. Oh wow, I got this nice little roll of end grain. See if I can get it out. Can you see that? Anyway. Wait, maybe I can do this. Yeah, there we go. See, it's like it's all rolled up and it's end grain. That's pretty cool. Usually that just breaks off because it's end grain. Anyway. Oh yeah, I was gonna show you. The bottle of, or jar, I should say, of wood finish. Willie's wood finish. Let me get this little part chiseled out of here. I don't use my air compressor enough. I have one. Also, I feel like I should check this measurement again because the bottom of this one is pretty uneven. That's pretty good. All right. Let me grab this bottle of, or jar. Jar. It's a jar. So, it's kind of looking a little worse for the wear because I've used most of it. But this is what the label looks like. And maybe I will put a link to it in the description or something. It's, you know, it's good. It's no more expensive than any other wood finish. It's not like it's, you know, oh, it's made in his homemade, so it's, you know, costs a lot more or anything like that. Smells like oranges. There's nothing in here that's not natural. Tung oil, citrus solvent, beeswax, carnauba wax, candelilla wax, and pine rosin. And it smells awesome. It's, you know, it's, you could do it. You could put it on with your hands if you wanted to. I put gloves on just because I don't want my hands to smell like oranges for hours. You know, I like the smell though. It's a good smell. When it's, you know, curing and everything like that, it does really smell nice. No VOCs. And it's an 8-ounce jar. And I made a TV stand like right before we moved here. I made this TV stand that was it was a whole lot of framework and then shelves built in. So it was like 3 tiers. It was a corner piece. It was pretty big. I mean, it was like, I don't know, 3.5 feet wide. It was like 42, maybe it was 4 feet. I don't know, something like that. And then it was, you know, 18 or 20 inches deep or something. And it had like 3 levels, a whole bunch of mortise and tenon joints wedged through tenons. There's a video, you can go back and look at it from my old shop back in Illinois. And I used this. I used one jar. It took the entire jar to do that project, but one jar did the entire project. I mean, you know, it's pretty significant. It's only 8 ounces of, you know, this jelly stuff. Don't put it on your toast because that wouldn't be good. But but anyway, it really gives a deep, you know, look to it and everything. And I think, and you know, like I said, I'm gonna put a couple coats of boiled linseed oil diluted on top of, you know, or not on top. I'm gonna do that first, and then I'm gonna put this on top of that, and then most likely I will put another coat of just wax, just some, you know, some fine furniture wax or whatever on the top surface to prevent it or protect it more from, you know, drinks and stuff like that. I actually thought about making a set of coasters for my daughter also to use on this, and of course I hadn't said anything to anybody, and if she watches this she'll know, but I'm not sure yet. I might need to get rid of this little piece sticking out here. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Oh, tool holder. I love these little slots for my chisels. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So it's kind of cool because I'm, you know, like I said, I'm doing it with my phone. I'm filming with my phone, and I'm able to, you know, watch it back on here with the chat on the side and everything like that. I've seen people do it, you know, before on YouTube. I you know, they were looking at their computer while they were doing it and everything, and I kind of knew what they were doing, but I've never done it myself. It's kind of neat. All right, so let's see if this is going to go in there. Okay, not quite yet. I need to shave a little bit off of this end. Whoops. Probably wouldn't hurt if I rounded over these. Yes, but that is much better. And let me look at this. See if it's squarish. Yeah, okay, that's also pretty good. So I need to shave a little bit off of here. Do I have a pencil? Yeah, that's where I want to do it. And before I do that, I'm going to get this out of the way. And shave a little bit off of these. Corners. Just so it fits in the... You didn't see that. I need to... I should have made this a Thor's hammer, and that way I could just go and it would come to my hand. Yeah, I'm just going to take a little bit off of here with the chisel. As long as it doesn't splinter too much, it doesn't matter what it looks like because it's going to be inside of a mortise and tenon joint. I've got a really good men's group that I go to on Friday mornings. It's at my church, on my church property. And it's I mean, there's like, on average, I would say there's, 15 to 18 guys that show up every Friday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. Because some of them, are working and they go to work after men's group. It lets out at, 8. We start at like 10 after 7. I mean, we're there usually earlier, but look at that. I got my microphone that probably sounded like staticky. And then, and we talk for about an hour or so. And we get done at like 8:10 or 8 o'clock or whatever, whenever it feels comfortable that it's done, but it usually doesn't go much later than 8:15. And what an awesome group of guys. I mean, a lot of different walks of life and people that come from different parts of the country and, live here now, and all age ranges. There's, the oldest person I think is like 83 or 84 or something like that. And the youngest one I think is about 25. Maybe not even that. Maybe he's only like 23 or 24. I'm not sure. But they, pose a question. The leader poses a question each week, and we sit there and think about it. It's on the spot too. It's not, it's not like a test or anything. It's just he just poses a question, something spiritual to get a conversation going, kind of thing. And what's something that blah blah blah, whatever the question might be. And then we sit there and think about it for a minute or two, and then there's no obligation to answer or anything like that. You just speak up when you're ready and say what's on your mind. Talk about something that has to do with the topic or whatever, and it's really cool. I mean, there's almost never a time when even close to everybody, talks. It's usually, 4 or 5 people or something. They each talk for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it might be. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less. It's very open and free, and sometimes it's really deep and heavy, and sometimes it's lighter and fun, and it's pretty awesome. But for someone like me who I won't get too deep, but has never had. I mean, like, okay, my best friend is a guy. Of course, he's my best friend. We've had, you know, good relationship over the years and everything. But him and maybe, a couple other guys in my life have been the ones that I've, had a good friendship with, and a lot of other guys, not so much. I mean, I have a lot of friends, but when you start getting into those deep things where you can talk about stuff and everything like that, which is important, I haven't had that most of my life, and so anyway, it's really nice to have a big group of guys that you can talk to about whatever, and that it's, first of all, that it's confidential. It's not going to leave the room. But also that, these guys have your best interests at heart. They want you to do well. They want you to be healthy in every way and succeed, and all those things. Many of us have helped each other in lots of different ways, and it's just really cool. So I appreciate it a lot. We were talking, well, and the main thing is that these talks that we have and some of the stuff that comes up or whatever, it inspires me. And a lot of times what happens is I'll start talking to God on the way home, while I'm driving back through the mountains. I say mountains because I come from Illinois. They're not really mountains. There's one mountain, and when we first moved here, it was intimidating, and I was kind of scared of it. It's 1,100 feet. It's not that high, but now, even on my motorcycle, but also in my truck, every time I can go that way, when I've got the extra time to take the back roads, and I don't have to hurry by getting on the highway or whatever, I will go that route and go over that mountain, because it's so pretty and it's fun, and all of that, and your ears pop and it's cool. But anyway, so I'll be driving home through the hills and the one mountain sometimes, and I'll be talking to God, and sorry, that's loud. And immediately, it's like the Holy Spirit that I have been in the presence of in that room with all those men, because the Holy Spirit lives in us. So when you got 15 or 20 guys together, there's a lot of Holy Spirit in there. I mean, there's one, but I'm just saying the presence of God is increased because of all of us being together. And so then I start, talking to God on the way home, maybe asking questions about things that I, thoughts that came to my mind, or things that, the discussion made me think of in regards to, my own life or whatever. And he starts talking back, I mean, he starts showing me things, or, just like a little while ago when I said that I was gonna, I can use the router with that bit instead of going and buying a circular braid, because I'm sitting here processing. I'm sitting here talking about it, and I'm processing it as I'm talking about it. Okay. Sorry. It was a news alert. I was just checking to make sure the world's not going to end in the next 5 minutes. Um, and so, I mean, I'm sure that's happened to, a lot of people where you start talking about something out loud and all of a sudden something occurs to you and you're like, oh, yeah, Well, that happens with some of the deep things too. When I'm thinking about stuff that happened to me when I was a kid or, whatever it might be. That question, why am I the way I am? But, those questions come up and you start to think about it and verbalize it. And I think that's the reason that, we weren't meant to do this alone, that God wants us to get together and talk to each other and, obviously worship him and support the church and the body of Christ and everything like that. But I don't think it's just about that. I think it's also about, getting together, because isolation is one of the biggest tricks of the enemy is that, if he can get you isolated and get you wrapped up in your own thoughts and overthinking, everybody jokes about that nowadays, about how they're, oh, I overthink this and blah, blah, blah and everything. And it's kind of a joke. And of course it's funny. I'm not, dissing on them or anything, but I'm just saying, that it's not good. We're not meant to be that way. We need to be able to talk to people and get the stuff out of us because, oh man, there's so many things about this. Because once, first of all, you're unloading, some of your luggage and somebody else is there to listen and offer support or, maybe give you ideas that you didn't have or whatever, or just be there and listen, whatever it might be. But also when your ears hear what you're saying, when you start talking about stuff that's going on in your head, when it's all internalized in there, it's trapped in there and it can't get out. And so it can't find answers. But once you say it out loud, your own ears hear it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, what if I do this? Or, oh, this is because of that, or, whatever it is. There's something very important about saying it out loud so that not only you unload it, but also so that your own ears hear what's in it. And sometimes it's like, everybody's had this happen where you say something out loud that you've been thinking, and then you're like, oh my gosh, that sounded so funny in my head, or that sounded so smart in my head. That seemed like a good idea at the time, all of that stuff. But then once it's actually out there and you're able to be objective about it, because it's out there instead of in here, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that wasn't such a good idea, or that wasn't funny at all, or that was a really dumb thing to do, or, whatever it might be. So anyway, it's important to be able to talk. And I think it helps to talk out loud when you're praying, because that stuff happens there also. One of the things that that came up during our conversation Friday, this last Friday, was the scripture that said, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few, or something like that. And it was Buford. He's the oldest guy that's in his, almost mid 80s or whatever, and he's one of the wisest people I've ever met. And he was saying it in relation to the fact that, well, what came up was that we were talking about like witnessing to people, just being able to talk to your friends or your family or whatever about God, and a lot of times your friends and your family cannot hear it from you. Meaning they don't. It doesn't have the impact. And sometimes they will just reject it because they know you, they've known you your whole life. And so the fact that you all of a sudden are, talking about Jesus or have started going to church or whatever it is, and if they don't have a favorable opinion of that at all, then it's real easy for them to just be like, oh my gosh, he's joined a cult, or he's, off the deep end, or whatever it is. And that was weird. But anyway, but then if somebody else comes to them, if a stranger comes to them and shares the gospel with them, or talks to them, or better yet, God gives them a word, or something. He tells them something about themselves that they couldn't have known outside of God. Then it's effective, and I'm not talking about effective like, "Ooh, let's pump up the numbers." I'm talking about, it's effective to reaching their soul, and letting them know that God is real and God is alive, and it's a real thing. It's not a fantasy, and they can't hear it from you. Is Jesus couldn't hardly perform any miracles in Nazareth because that's where he was from, and they were saying, this is scripture. I'm just reading scripture to you now, and saying that, they said, isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't that the guy that, isn't that the guy built my kitchen table or whatever? What's up with him? Now he thinks he's God, or now he thinks he can perform miracles, or whatever. And okay, now I need to shave that off. And so it's kind of the same deal, where, if you're trying to talk to your friends or your family that have known you all their lives or whatever, they can't receive from you because they've known you your whole life, and it just seems wrong or out of character or whatever it is. It seems, like it can't possibly be valid because I've known that guy his whole life. And so I'm just going to try and do this freehand, shave it off. There's probably a better way to do this. In fact, I know there's a better way to do this. I could use this, which is a Stanley number 78. And it's not really a shoulder plane, but it kind of can work like a shoulder plane. And so maybe I can get the majority of it done that way. I've also got a block plane that would work pretty well. But anyway, so this was what our conversation, this was something that Buford was saying about how, it's hard for people to receive from someone they've known all their lives. And many times it's, they're able to be reached. I'm going to leave out that effective, terminology, because that's not what it sounds worse than it is. It's not what I really mean, though. But many times they can only be reached by someone that they don't already know, or whatever. And so I was thinking about that when I was driving home through the mountains. They're mountains, dang it. I'm from Illinois. So when I'm driving through the mountains, I was thinking about that, and right, because I was thinking about, some of my family members and people who, have had issue with that kind of thing. And and I swear the Lord just downloaded, a kind of a word to me. It wasn't just a word, but it was a thought. And it was about pollination. Because, if you think of, I gotta take a little bit more off of that. If you think of believing in God and starting to trust Him, with your life and everything as blooming, then having somebody, tell you about Him, having somebody, maybe witness to you, or, whatever terminology you want to use, having somebody talk to you about God and or Jesus is kind of like being pollinated in a way. something is being shared with you, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to take effect, but something is being shared with you. And so I thought, there's so many analogies between, I shouldn't say analogies, because they're not, it's kind of symbolic, but it's more like parallels. Parallels is a good word. There's so many parallels between nature and our lives, what goes on in our lives. And you can almost always find something, where a biblical lesson or a spiritual lesson or something can be taught by using I mean, Jesus did. He spoke in parables all the time, and a lot of them were about nature, plants, animals, whatever. And so this pollination thing dropped in my head, and I was like, oh, I got to remember that and look it up. And sure enough, because I had an inkling, I had kind of an idea of what it might be, but I wasn't sure, and so I wanted to look it up. And sure enough, when I looked it up, pollination is much more effective when the pollen, whatever the two parts are, when it comes from a distance. If it's part of the same plant, or a plant that has grown up right next to it or something like that, it's effective. Sometimes it does work, but part of the time. But it's much more effective when the plant that the pollen came from is from a plant that's at a greater distance. It just works better. And I was like, oh wow, that'll preach, right? So yeah, I just thought that was really interesting, because it was like this thing dropped into my head, and I thought, oh no, it's maybe that's just me, trying to create something in my mind, or that I'm just thinking silly thoughts, or whatever, trying to make something up that's not there. But sure enough, it was. That's what the Google said. I read it on the internet, so it must be true, right? All right, let's try this again. Okay, well, it'll go in there, but it's pretty dang tight. Yeah, if I hammer that in there, it's never coming back up. So I better check for square in some other places in here. See what's what. It seems to be pretty square. So does that. Maybe it's the sides. Oh yeah, I think it is. I think both of these sides are. They both have some material that needs to be removed on the long sides. All right, let's see if I can manage that. I'm going to put this back. Anyway, I thought that was a cool little revelation and worthy of sharing. Flip. That's right. Let's get flippant with a chisel in our hand. That's not good. Okay. A little better, but something's still hanging it up. And I think it is that corner and this corner. Probably sounds terribly loud on here. Sorry about that. Oh yeah, there's something else I wanted to tell you guys. I didn't even take a picture of this thing, so now I got stuff falling off my head. I didn't even take a picture of this. I should have, but it was one of those little projects that was so cool, and I was excited about it, and I was in such a hurry to get it done that I just kind of I don't think I took a picture of it. If I did, it's on my phone, and that's what I'm using for a camera. So maybe I'll post it later if I have one. But or maybe I can get the person to send me one. Anyway, so not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. We were in church. Ooh, I think I need to take a little bit more off of this because, yeah, I do. Because that is not, it's resisting. I could probably take a little bit off of there too. Is that straight? It's kind of straight. It's mostly straight. All right, I'm gonna take a tiny bit off of there. So Sunday before last, we were in church. What would that be? 22nd? I think it was 22nd. And we our church is in it's in the round. It's actually a square. It's not in the round, it's in the square. But the band, the worship team is in the middle. And all the seats are, in a square around them. Uh-oh, wait a minute. It's this one. And we tend to, a lot of times, sit behind the drummer for several reasons. And that's not the right one. I can't believe you didn't tell me. Okay, there we go. Now I got the right one. We sit behind the drummer, and this wife and daughter that we've met, that made friends with since we've been going there, was sitting next to us. The daughter was the closest one. It was me, and then my wife, and then this girl. I think she's like 10 or 11, something like that. And because the church is in the round, and because the drummer is not in one of those fishbowl cage things, as a drummer, I have a lot of experience with those. They try to play as quietly as they can while still being, dynamic and powerful and everything else. And that's difficult. If you know anything about being in a band, it's hard for the drummer to be quiet. It just is. And so they play with those hot rod things. It's if you've ever seen, like, okay, there's drumsticks, and then there's those brushes that jazz players use all the time, that are, you know, like a bunch of wires in kind of a flat, you know, arrangement, I guess. But then there's these hot rod things, and it's like a bundle of dowel rods that are about 3/16 of an inch each. And I don't know, there's 10 or 12 of them in there, however many. And it's wrapped with like this vinyl kind of shrink stuff, and it's got a rubber deal on the end, on the butt end, and everything. And about, you know, this much of it at the top is, you know, outside of the you know, rubber wrapping deal or whatever. And it kind of is like halfway between brushes and drumsticks. You still get kind of a hit, but it's softer, and it's a little more splashy, for lack of a better word, than just a straight drumstick is. And the particular drummer that was playing on Sunday, he oh, that's good. Let's try that. He plays with one regular drumstick in his right hand, but one of these hot rod sticks in his left hand for the snare drum, because, I mean, not that you never hit the snare drum with your right, but most of the time it's your left hand. Playing right-handed traditionally, of course. And you know, that way he can still get the kind of ping off the cymbals and stuff like that, but he's also not getting big crack snare hits that deafen everybody. Oh, nice. That one turned out good. Hold on. Tap just a little bit. Oh, yeah. That is the best one so far. I did those other two, and they were good. Awesome. Okay, check this out. Bring it over here. Look, there's almost no gap. I mean, you could probably fit a piece of paper, maybe not even a piece of paper in there, but that turned out really nice. Okay, just got to do this one, and I'll have all four of them done for the short aprons. But anyway, so he's playing with one drumstick, one hot rod. Oh shoot, I gotta put those back up and grab this so I can get this apron out, because it's not gonna come out loose. Oh yeah, that's actually, I mean, it's tough to get out, but that's good. It's a good fit. Awesome. Okay. So we're all standing up, worshiping and stuff. People got their hands like this. People got their hands like this. The whole deal. This little girl that's on the other side of my wife. She was wearing some kind of like a sweater jacket thing or something like that. It was long sleeve. He cracks the snare drum, and it was like we all were watching as one of these pieces of the hot rod, the little dowel rod things. That's the other thing about this, is that it breaks easier than a drumstick does, because it's smaller, thinner pieces. So they tend to deteriorate a lot faster than drumsticks. And one of these pieces of dowel rod, about, like 3 or 3.5 inches long, cracks off. It's a big splinter on one end, cracks off, and it was like a pop fly, and it went flying up into the air, almost hit the beam that goes across. Our building is kind of like a barn. It's got, it closes up, but it's got these big beams that hold this framework inside, and it's twirling, goes up, comes back down. We're only 2 rows behind the drummer. I mean, we're like from me to you, the camera, about, away from the drummer. That's about all the farther it was. So it went almost straight up, comes down, lands on her arm, and kind of sticks in the fibers there or whatever. And I saw it, and I watched it like this, and I went like that, and so of course I ended up looking right at her, and she's like, and she looks up at me, and we were just cracking up. We're like laughing. Worship's going on, full band music and everything, right there, just feet away, but we're just laughing because it was so funny seeing this thing happen. And then she just kind of picks it off, and she just goes like this and hands it to me, and you know, I know her. It's not like, I've met her a couple of times and everything, but it's not like we're buddies or anything like that. And so it would, it's kind of unusual that she would just hand it to me. I don't know if maybe she knows I'm a woodworker. I think maybe she does know I'm a woodworker. I think our parents bought something for me one time. But anyway, so she just like this, and I was like, okay, and I took it and I was playing around with it, and I sticking it up in my glasses on the arm of my glasses, and I was just goofing around kind of with it and everything. And just like a minute later, I was like, oh, that was like a special moment. I'm gonna turn this into something. And I thought, I'm going to turn it into something, and I'm going to give it to her, and give it back to her as a cool little wood thing or something. And so, it didn't take me long. I was just cooking up for a minute. I was like, oh, duh. I'll take this little piece of dowel rod, and I'll cut it in two pieces and make a cross out of it. And then I'll inlay that into, something else. And I ended up making a little pendant, like with a necklace, leather strap kind of necklace. Excuse me. Sorry. And it turned out really good. I found a nice piece of cherry that it was quarter sawn in the place where I took the wood for the pendant out of. It was quarter sawn, and if you've ever seen quarter sawn cherry, it's really cool. Actually, let me find a piece real quick, and I'll show you what I mean. Because like quarter sawn white oak has those big crazy flecks in it, if you've ever seen that, and it's really like striking, and on a big what am I trying to say, on a grander scale, I guess. Shoot, here it is. But oops, quarter sawn cherry is a lot more, it's a tighter grain, and it's a lot smaller. So let me see if I can get this up here and you can see the reflection of it, maybe right there. It's like right in here. If you can see that, oops. Come on, camera. There we go. If you can see that kind of stuff. I took a piece that had, that kind of look all over it. And the whole thing was, I think it was only like an inch this way or something, and like maybe 3/4 of an inch wide on side to side or something like that. And then it was convoluted. I won't try to explain it. Well, maybe I should. I'm talking to woodworkers. So I had to drill a hole that would be on the like long ways through the face of it, so that these dowel rods would show, like, so they would fit in there and stay in there. But that part of, okay, like think of a dowel rod, a circle like that. The face of it would be, below the top edge of the dowel rod, so that part of the dowel rod is showing. You know what I mean? And so I had to. It's like if you try and drill a hole like that, the drill bit's just going to go out the side, and it's not going to work. It's going, it needs to be straight. And I mean, it's a substantial drill bit. It's 3/16 of an inch, ish. Maybe a little better, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. It was like 11/64 or something like that. So maybe it was just a hair less than 3/16. But so I took another block of wood, and I clamped them together real tight with like a screw clamp, and then marked a hole so that the drill bit wouldn't wander or anything like that, and drilled the hole that way. And then I turned it 90 degrees and did the side piece, for the cross beam, because it's cross. And so then I put the cross beam was the one that I put a solid piece all the way through, and then the top and the bottom were the ones, and I took a curved. I have this. It's the only like carving gouge that I have, and it's got a curved edge. If you can see that, I mean, I know that's curved, but also the edge, the sharpened edge, is curved like this, you know. And I took that and like put it on the pieces of the dowel rod, and cut a curve in them so that when they went in there, they were like this over the other dowel rod, so that it actually looked like they fit together and everything. It works really well. I was surprised. I think somebody was helping me with that, because I was doing something nice for somebody. But it worked out really well. It was kind of amazing. And did I get this? Yeah, I did. That's the one that fit. I need to do the other one. And I'm going to end this in a minute. I've been talking your ear off for quite a long time now, so sorry about that. But so I got the dowels in there, and then I sanded all the front edges and the corners and the back edges and everything, and the cherry had that nice little quarter sawn thing going on. And it's never, well, I shouldn't say never, but a lot of times with cherry, it's not like a nice straight evenly uh, spaced pattern or anything. It kind of has swirl in it or something like that, and so it had a really cool look to it. Even though it was really small, it was only this big, but you could see it when you look close. And then I put a little bit of finish on it, and put a little screw eye in the top, and made a leather necklace with a clasp and everything, and put it on there. And I gave it to her this past Sunday, when we were at church, and I told. Oh, and I should say, just so y'all don't think I'm weird. Her dad is in my men's group, and I asked him Friday in men's group. I went up to him and I said, "Hey," I explained what had happened because he wasn't there when it happened, and I told him about the little thing flying up in the air and landed on her arm, and we had this funny moment and everything. And I and I asked him, I just I'm like, I want to ask your permission, make sure it's okay that I make this for her and give it to her and everything. And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's totally fine. Glad you asked, and thanks for thinking of us and all that stuff." He was super nice about it. And so her and her mom were standing there, before church on Sunday, and her mom knew that I was going to do it, but I went up and gave it to her and everything, and we were, just kind of recounting the how it happened and everything like that. And it was just really cute, and I, that was a, kind of a small thing. I mean, maybe it wasn't her then. That's great. I hope so. I hope something that she remembers for a long time, but uh, I've found that a lot of these things that I've made, like if you saw my video of the sword, I used that same geometric thing that I showed you a little while ago, geometric background mosaic whatever thingy, and I made the sword, and it had the scripture reference on it and everything, and I gave it to this guy that he got up at it wasn't in church, because he was talking about some heavy stuff that needed. It was at a men's. They call it the brothers. Like they have a brothers barbecue or brothers breakfast or something like that. And so it's it's men. I think they say from middle school up or something like that. But whatever it was, he was talking about some heavy stuff, and how his upbringing was really rough, and then he was in the military, and it was really rough, and um, he wasn't saying this, but internally, I'm going, and yet you turned out to be one of the most admirable men that I've ever met. I mean, he serves the church with his whole heart. He is incredibly peaceful and kind, and and he goes after God with everything he has, and it's and he's got a great family. He's raised. I know two of them that go to our church. I don't know. There may be other, adult kids. I mean, he's my age, or maybe a year, older or younger. He's somewhere around my age, and so he's got adult kids, and they're. In fact, his son is the drummer in the worship. He, a different drummer, but he's one of the drummers in the worship team and everything, and it's like people that grow up in that kind of environment. Well, I mean, I guess there are there's two kinds of people. Some of them either, are like, screw that. I'm not going to live that way, and I'm going to do everything that my dad or my mom or whoever didn't do because this was horrible, and I don't want to live like that. Or they don't know any better, and it ends up being cyclical. Like a lot of times abuse is cyclical, whether it's sexual abuse or physical abuse or verbal or narcissism or whatever it is. And sorry, my head hurts a little. Sinuses. It's pollen season. My wife sent me a video earlier today that it was kind of a joke. It was this lady talking about pollen bombs everywhere in the South. So anyway, it's just it's really inspiring to see somebody that lived through a lot of really rough stuff. Grew up in a rough atmosphere, and then as an adult, a young adult, went through a lot of really rough stuff also, and still, well, I'm sure that he would probably argue because of God, he is the person that he is, and I think that's true for any real Christian that will tell you that it's not because I'm a good person. It's because I'm I make mistakes and I repent of them all the time, and that's what Christianity is believing that he is who he is and accepting what he went through as payment for your sins and for being forgiven for that stuff, and I'm only a good person because he's living through me. He is, Holy Spirit's in my heart and all that kind of stuff. So, there's that. But it's still a choice. You still have free will to live how you want to live, and choosing to be that, and to dedicate yourself to God and everything after you've gone through that. It's inspiring. And so my point being that's why something like that happens. Somebody inspires me or touches my heart in some way, or in this case with the little, the drumstick thing, just something cool happened, something, funny happened, and I was able to turn it into something. And a lot of times that happens. We'll be in church, somebody's talking, or sharing something personal or touching or whatever, and all of a sudden I'll see this picture. I'll see this thing that and I'm like, I want to make this and I want to give it to him as a gift. And so I feel like that is part of my ministry, so to speak, but, part of my gifting or whatever you want to call it, to bless people like that have, that are living the life and dedicating themselves to God, but also, sharing it and touching other people, and whenever that it has that effect on me, I think, well, it certainly had that effect on other people and everything, and it inspires me to make some sort of art with wood, and then give it to them as a gift or whatever. So I've got ideas for more of that stuff, that are kind of in the works. I'm just waiting for the right time or whatever. But I love that. I love taking a moment like that and turning it into a physical object that, for one thing, shows them that, hey, I think you're awesome. I think what you do is awesome, or what you've done, or what you shared, or whatever is awesome, or, something like that. And, this is a way that I can bless you and kind of memorialize, the thing that you did that touched me. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Anyway, I'm going to get off here and continue. Well, first I'm going to go have lunch. And then I'm going to continue on and work on this, and try and get these tenons fitted into the mortises. And yeah, then, I'll be on to the next step. I'll be cutting that top down, and, using that router bit to get it to the right size, because I thought of that while I was talking to you. So thank you again. Anyway, hope you guys have a great day. I hope talking to me has, or me talking to you, I should say, has been helpful or a blessing in some way. Or if you're a woodworker, maybe you've learned a little tip or trick or something from me. That's all good. I hope that you will give me a like on this video and possibly subscribe to my channel. I got 1 subscriber right at the very beginning when I first started, so that's super cool. And yeah, I like doing this. It's fun. I like making the videos. But there's editing involved and all of that kind of stuff, and I like putting that stuff together and making it look cool and having music and presenting it in a certain way. But this is also really cool too, because it just gives me somebody to talk to while I'm doing the work, and I can talk to God. I'm sure He appreciates that. But if I talk to you about God, I'm sure He appreciates that too. So anyway, all right, I'm out of here. You guys have a good day. See ya. And